Severe thunderstorms across Queensland, developing tropical low in the Coral Sea, flash flooding already reported. That's the situation we are dealing with right now. I've been examining the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, and there's a lot to unpack here. Multiple weather systems converging across eastern Australia, and the timing of all this is creating some significant concerns for the next several days. Let me start with what is happening right now, because conditions across Queensland are already deteriorating. Right now across southeast Queensland, it's been hot and humid all week. Brisbane has been sitting around 34, 35 degrees with that sticky, oppressive humidity that makes it feel 10 degrees hotter. That warm, moist air mass has been parked over the region, and it's not going anywhere quickly. Further north in Townsville and Cairns, it has typical build-up weather, 35 to 38 degrees, high humidity, isolated afternoon storms. Nothing unusual for this time of year, but it's setting the stage for what is developing offshore. Compare that to what is happening down south. Tasmania saw overnight minimums drop to -2 in some areas this morning. Frost across the northern suburbs of Hobart. Melbourne hit 32 yesterday, but that is about to change as a cold front pushes through. That temperature contrast between the tropical north and the southern states is massive, and it is this gradient that is driving the current weather pattern. Now, the main player in all this is a developing low pressure system in the Coral Sea. Let me walk you through what we're seeing with this system, because it is complex and it is evolving. The Access model, the Bureau's main forecasting tool, is showing this low developing about 300 kilometres off the central Queensland coast. Current pressure is sitting around 1,008 hectopascals. Not particularly intense yet, but the environment around it is primed for development. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are running about 1 to 1.5 degrees above average for this time of year. We're looking at 28, 29 degrees. That is plenty of energy for tropical development. The upper atmosphere is also showing favourable conditions with low wind shear across the area. When you combine warm water with low shear, tropical systems can organise quickly. The European model and the GFS are both in agreement on the basic setup, which gives me confidence in the overall pattern. Where they differ is the exact track and intensity. The Access model takes this system west-southwest toward the central coast. The European model is slightly more conservative, keeping it offshore longer. The GFS sits somewhere in between. What does this mean practically? We're re-looking at a system that will impact Queensland regardless of the exact track. The question is whether it makes landfall or stays offshore and produces its worst effects along the coastal fringe. Let me break down the timeline, because this is unfolding over several days and different areas will see impacts at different times. Today through tonight, we're already seeing severe thunderstorms developing across the southeast. The Bureau has issued severe thunderstorm warnings for areas from the Sunshine Coast down through Brisbane, the Gold Coast and into northern New South Wales. These storms are capable of producing heavy rainfall, damaging wind gusts up to 90 kilometres per hour and large hail. Some areas have already copped significant rainfall. Reports coming through of localised flash flooding around Blackwater and parts of the Burnett region, roads going under, creeks rising rapidly. The ground across much of inland Queensland is already saturated from previous rainfall, so it doesn't take much to cause flooding now. By tomorrow morning, that Coral Sea low will be better organised. The Bureau's tracking shows it continuing to intensify as it moves closer to the coast. We're not talking cyclone intensity at this stage, but a significant rain-bearing system with embedded severe thunderstorms. Tomorrow afternoon and into Wednesday, the heaviest rainfall will be focused along the central coast from about Mackay down to the Fraser Coast. Model consensus is showing widespread falls of 100 to 200 millimetres. Some areas, particularly where thunderstorms train over the same locations, could see 300 millimetres or more over a 36-hour period, 300 millimetres in a day and a half. That is serious rainfall, and it will cause flooding. Major river systems across central Queensland are already running high from recent rain. This additional rainfall will push many of them into moderate to major flood categories. The Fitzroy River catchment is a particular concern. The Callide, Dawson and Mackenzie tributaries are all flowing strongly. Additional heavy rainfall across these catchments will see renewed flooding through Rockhampton and surrounding areas. Many of you remember the 2011 floods. The Fitzroy reached 9.2 metres at Rockhampton. We were not forecasting levels that extreme with this event, but we could see moderate flooding, which means properties in low-lying areas will be impacted. By Wednesday night into Thursday, the system should start to weaken as it either moves inland or tracks south into cooler waters. But even as it weakens, it will continue to produce periods of heavy rain across southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. Brisbane and the Gold Coast can expect widespread falls of 50 to 100 millimetres Wednesday into Thursday. Localised heavier falls where thunderstorms develop. The concern here is urban flooding. Drainage systems will be overwhelmed in areas that cop the heaviest falls in short periods. Now let's talk about the wind. This isn't just a rain event. Along the coast, from about Yeppoon down to the Sunshine Coast, we were looking at sustained winds of 50 to 70 kilometres per hour with gusts to 90 or 100 kilometres per hour, particularly Wednesday. Those are damaging wind speeds. Enough to bring down trees, especially in saturated soil where root systems are compromised. Power lines will come down. Expect outages if you are in a coastal area, particularly around 1770, Agnes Water, down through Bundaberg. Secure loose items around your property today. Trampolines, outdoor furniture, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. For those on the water, marine warnings are in place. Seas building to 3 to 4 metres offshore, higher in thunderstorms. Conditions are deteriorating rapidly. If you're replanning to head out, reconsider. If you're already out, get back to port. The storm surge will add to coastal flooding concerns. We're not talking major surge, but with king tides this week, even a moderate surge of half a metre combined with wave action will see coastal inundation in vulnerable low-lying areas. Let me address something I know many of you are thinking about. How does this compare to previous events? This system won to reach the intensity of Cyclone Marcia in 2015. Marcia was a Category 5 that hit near Yeppoon with wind gusts over 200 kilometres per hour, absolutely devastating. This current system is a different beast, lower intensity, but potentially broader impacts due to the rainfall. A better comparison might be the February 2008 rain event across southeast Queensland. That system produced similar rainfall totals, caused widespread flooding through Brisbane and Ipswich. Roads cut, properties inundated, significant disruption for days. We're re-looking at similar potential here, particularly for the urban areas. The key difference is we have better warning now. The Bureau S forecasting has improved significantly. We know this is coming. That gives you time to prepare. So what should you be doing? If you are in an area forecast to receive heavy rainfall, particularly in flood-prone locations, start preparing now. Not tomorrow, not when you see water rising. Now, have your emergency kit ready. Clean drinking water, non-perishable food for at least 3 days, first aid supplies, torch with spare batteries, portable radio. Your mobile phone might not work if towers go down or lose power. A battery-powered or hand-crank radio will keep you informed. If you're on tank water, fill your tanks before the heaviest rain hits. Power outages will affect pumps. Having full tanks gives you a buffer. Charge all devices. Phones, tablets, power banks. If the power goes out, you want maximum battery life. Clear your gutters and drains. Blocked gutters will overflow, potentially causing water damage to your home. Blocked drains around your property will cause localised flooding. Know your evacuation routes. If you live in a flood-prone area and the Bureau issues an evacuation warning, leave early. Don't wait until roads are cut. Traffic will be heavy. Conditions will deteriorate. Leaving early before the worst of it hits is always safer. Never, and I mean never, drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That is not just a catchy slogan from the SES, it is life-saving advice. You cannot judge the depth of floodwater, you cannot judge the current, you cannot see if the road surface has been washed away underneath. Every year, people die driving into floodwater. Don't be one of them. For those in rural areas, check your livestock. Make sure they have access to high ground. If you have stock in low-lying paddocks that are likely to flood, move them now while you can. Once water starts rising, moving animals becomes dangerous for you and distressing for them. Secure farm equipment and supplies, fuel, chemicals, anything that could be swept away or contaminated by floodwater needs to be moved to higher ground or secured. If you rely on creek crossings to access your property, plan ahead. Once those crossings go under, you might be isolated for days. Stock up on essentials before that happens. Now, I want to talk specifically to those in towns like Blackwater, Emerald, Theodore, areas that are already seeing flooding. You've been through this before. Many of you lived through the 2010, 2011 floods. You know what flooding looks like. You know the danger. But don't let that familiarity breed complacency. This event is developing differently. The rainfall is coming in waves, multiple systems, not just one event. River levels that drop slightly might rise again quickly as the next band of rain moves through. Stay informed, monitor the Bureau of Meteorology website for the latest warnings, listen to your local emergency services. If they issue an evacuation order, follow it. They not being alarmist, they responding to real data and real risk. For those of you down in southeast Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, this might seem less immediate, but Wednesday and Thursday will bring your turn. Urban flooding in these areas can happen quickly. Drainage systems designed for typical rainfall can cope with extreme events. Underpasses flood, low-lying streets become rivers. I've seen it happen. If you're planning to travel Wednesday or Thursday, reconsider if possible. If you must travel, allow extra time, monitor conditions, have alternative routes planned, roads will be closed, traffic will be heavy. What is normally a 30-minute drive could take 2 hours or be impossible. Schools might close, businesses might close. Plan for disruptions to your normal routine. Let me address power outages specifically because they are likely across wide areas. When trees come down in strong winds, they take power lines with them. When flooding occurs, substations can be affected. Outages might last hours or days depending on the damage and accessibility for repair crews. If you have medical equipment that requires power, have a backup plan. Contact your electricity provider, contact health services, make sure there is a plan in place. If you're reusing a generator, use it safely. Never run a generator indoors or in an enclosed space. Carbon monoxide kills, set it up outdoors, away from windows and doors. Food safety during outages, keep refrigerators and freezers closed as much as possible. A full freezer will keep food frozen for about 48 hours if you're done to open it. A full fridge will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Plan meals accordingly. Now let me talk about what happens after the immediate event because flooding doesn't end when the rain stops. River flooding can persist for days after rainfall ceases. Water takes time to move through catchments. Just because the rain has stopped doesn't mean rivers have peaked. The Fitzroy River system, for example, can take 3 to 5 days to peak at Rockhampton after heavy rainfall in the upper catchments. Continue monitoring warnings even after weather improves. Don't assume it's safe to return home or cross floodwaters just because the sky is clear. When floodwaters recede, the cleanup is exhausting and can be dangerous. Floodwater is contaminated. It is mixed with sewage, chemicals, debris, dead animals. Treat everything it touched as contaminated. Wear protective gear, gloves, boots. Clean and disinfect thoroughly. Watch for snakes and other wildlife that have been displaced by flooding. They seeking dry ground, same as you. Be cautious in sheds, under houses, in long grass. If your property has been flooded, document everything for insurance. Photos, videos, lists of damaged items. Do this before you start cleaning up if possible. Check for structural damage before re-entering buildings. Floodwater can undermine foundations, weaken walls. If in doubt, get professional advice before going inside. Let me also address the psychological toll because it's real and it matters. Dealing with severe weather, flooding, property damage, displacement, it's stressful, it's exhausting, it's overwhelming. Check on your mates, your neighbours, your family. A simple "how are you going" can make a difference. If you are struggling, reach out. Beyond Blue, Lifeline, these services are there for exactly this reason. Now, looking beyond this immediate event, what is the longer-term pattern? That tropical low in the Coral Sea isn't the only system we are watching. There's another area of disturbed weather developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Models are suggesting that could develop into another low later next week, potentially affecting the Northern Territory and Western Queensland. We in an active pattern. The monsoon trough is sitting further south than average for this time of year. Moisture is abundant. Sea surface temperatures are warm. This creates an environment where multiple systems can develop. For those in Northern Australia, the message is stay alert. This weather pattern could persist for another week, potentially 2. We might see multiple rain events, not just this one, for southern Queensland and northern New South Wales after this system clears. There's a brief window of drier weather Friday into the weekend. But another system is possible early next week. I'll be monitoring that closely and providing updates as the data becomes clearer. One question I know some of you have, what about La Nina? We currently in neutral conditions in the Pacific. Neither El Nino nor La Nina is dominant. However, the Bureau is monitoring indicators that suggest La Nina could develop later this year. If that happens, it typically means increased rainfall across eastern Australia, more tropical cyclones, higher flood risk. It's too early to say definitively what will happen, but the current active pattern is consistent with early La Nina signals, something to keep an eye on as we move through the year. Before I wrap up, I want to emphasise something important. Weather forecasting has limits. I've given you the best information available from the most reliable models and data sources. But models aren't perfect. Small changes in a system's track or intensity can mean significant differences in where the worst impacts occur. A shift of 50 kilometres in a low S track can be the difference between moderate rain and extreme flooding for a particular town. That SY at S crucial to stay updated. Don T, just watch this video and assume you know what S happening. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. They update warnings as conditions change. What S forecast now might change by tomorrow. Local emergency services will provide specific guidance for your area. Listen to them. They know your local risks, your local geography, your local flood history better than any general forecast can capture. To sum up, severe weather across Queensland now through Thursday. Developing Coral Sea low, bringing heavy rainfall, damaging winds, flooding. Widespread impacts from central Queensland down through southeast Queensland into northern New South Wales. Prepare now, stay informed, follow emergency service advice, never drive through floodwater. This is a significant weather event. Take it seriously, but don't panic. You've got time to prepare. Use it wisely.